Welcome in. I am the Crypto Bull God, and this is all in the charts. If you appreciate the content, make sure to hit the thumbs up button, drop me a comment, and click the bell icon for all notifications to know when I go live, whenever I go live. So it's nice to be back. I figured with some of the developments in the market, a lot of what I'm seeing on X and Twitter, the thumbnails I'm seeing on YouTube, especially for those who are inexperienced in the market, I felt it would be helpful for me to come out here and objectively tell you what I'm seeing in the data and why I believe we are on the verge of a big alt season, the potential for a big alt season. Even if you are well-versed in the market, this has been a really tricky market. And the reason is because there has been mass suppression in many altcoins for an extended period of time. People who have clung on to a 4-year cycle blindly without asking the question why things typically have followed a 4-year cycle are expecting things that they already have ended or they're ending very shortly. I have a very different view. I think we're going to go well into next year. That's how I see it. But what I want to do today, very simplistically, very objectively, I'm not going to give you my opinions. Well, in a sense, I might give you my opinion based on the probabilities. But at the end of the day, what I will be doing is I'm going to be objectively evaluating, it looks like 1, 2, 3, 4, 7 charts. We're going to take a look at 7 charts. This is going to be a fairly quick live stream. And these 7 charts are a big reason why I feel that we are on the precipice, albeit it's taking longer than expected, longer than probably you expected, longer than I expected, why we are on the precipice of a lot of altcoins running pretty hard in the months to come. So let's get into the first chart here. This is something I've reviewed on the channel before. This is something that I've shared on X and Twitter. By the way, real quick, because I haven't been out here live streaming, if you do value my analysis, following me on X Twitter, you can see right here, Crypto Bull God, it's all one word. So you can find me on X Twitter. I do routinely update those who follow me, the charts I'm looking at, what they're telling me. I'll look at altcoins, I'll look at macro indicators as well. So feel free to give me a follow there. And I would encourage you, I don't care how well-versed in the market you are, if you're new to an extremely experienced individual who's been here since 2018 like myself, you really need to make sure that you have just like a handful of people, whether it's on X or it's on YouTube, whose opinions you value in the market, just a handful. Because those people's opinions at times will differ from yours, and it's important to keep yourself honest in terms of what your view of the market is, and so that you're not getting biased. So I would encourage you to find a handful of technicians. Hopefully I'm one of them, but I would encourage you to find others as well that who you really value if you don't today. So this is Bitcoin dominance. The basic premise of the chart is if the chart is going up, what all that means is that Bitcoin's share of the overall market is increasing. If it's going down, it means that Bitcoin's market share of the overall market is decreasing. Okay, what would that imply? It would imply that altcoins' share of the market cap would be increasing. Okay, they have an inverse relationship. Bitcoin dominance versus altcoin dominance. That should make sense. So we can see here that in the past, let me raise my desk a little bit here. This is a little awkward. So we can see that in the past, okay, whenever there have been huge plummets in Bitcoin dominance, this is where we've seen those big alt seasons. I also think I should probably preface the conversation about to have with these charts with what is an alt season. We have to respect the fact that there is no industry term alt season, meaning there is no industry recognized definition of an alt season. Alt season is very subjective based on who you talk to. This person defines it as this. This person defines it as this. This person defines it as this. So it's very subjective. There again, this is a very important point. There is not an industry defining definition. There is no industry defining definition for alt season. Okay, so I'm going to explain to you clearly, very clearly, what I call a true alt season. A true alt season, historically speaking, and again, this is all we can go off of. We have limited data. Crypto hasn't been around for a long time. All I can do is look left, evaluate the history, and tell you what's happened before and what we look like right now, and properly interpret the data for you. So what I define as an alt season is when you see this type of price action in the Bitcoin dominance. What this is telling us is that altcoins are massively, as a whole, okay, every altcoin's different, but as a whole, that altcoin index, it is massively outperforming Bitcoin. So you can see that on the road up, let's just look at our current movements here. This entire ride up, we were just chopping around. Let me make this a little darker. You can see all we're doing here is chopping around, right? This was essentially an ascending channel if I drew the other black ascending line here. So all we were doing is chopping on the way up. There was no massive drop in Bitcoin dominance. Do you see a massive drop in Bitcoin dominance? Do you see anything that looks similar to this and similar to this? I don't. Now, is there any hope that we can have that Bitcoin dominance will begin to start to plummet and altcoins will massively outperform Bitcoin as a weighted average index? Okay? Yes. Why do I feel that way? Well, let's take a look at this chart. You tell me, if you have basic TA skills, is this chart bearish or bullish? It's bearish. Why is it bearish? Because we just broke this support. We broke this support line denoted by the blue circle here. And not surprisingly, a very basic concept that I hit on this channel very, 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 very frequently is that when you break an ascending line like this, we quite oftentimes like to come up and try and back test it, but we never get back above it if we're truly bearish. So we came up, we broke the ascending line of support, we came up and back tested it and failed, and we should be continuing lower. Now, I'm mainly going to focus on price action here, but there is one other thing that I wanted to look at on this chart. You can see we have a negative cross on the MACD for the first time since back here in January of 2021, okay? And that's when we started to see altcoins. That's the last time that altcoins started to have a massive run, was in early 2021. CBG was in true crypto bull god fashion during that time. I will say that. So Bitcoin dominance chart number 1 is leading me to conclude that it's bearish, and it looks like we're going to continue this downward channel here. Now, it's anyone's educated guess where we will stop. You see I have different zones drawn out here. I think at the very least, we will get into zone 3, which is between 51% and 44%. So I think the worst case scenario is that we see a plummet in dominance from essentially 60% down to 51 to 44%. A dream scenario is entering this area here and breaking this ascending line of support. I can't even imagine what the runs in the altcoins would look like. But this is my base case. My base case is where the parachute is at. Let's get to chart number 2. Guys, again, I'm just pointing out a probabilistic fact. There is a much higher probability that this chart will break down and become bearish versus starting to break up and become bullish. Why is that, and what is the chart? Well, the chart, working backwards, is USDT dominance. It is Tether dominance. So think about it this way. Tether is a stable coin. The larger, if the dominance within cryptocurrency is real high within a stable coin, that means people are being super conservative and they have capital parked on the side ready to deploy into the market. If dominance is really low, if Tether dominance is really low, what the market is saying is, I don't want to fucking hold a stable coin. Why the fuck would I want to hold a stable coin when it's, I mean, hopefully you know what a stable coin is. It's $1, okay? In the United States, $1, one token, $1, all right? It's not changing, all right? Might fluctuate to 99.5 cents, might go up to 1.05 cents, but it's $1, okay? So people don't want to hold that stablecoin. They want to take on risk, and so they deploy those stablecoins into the market and buy altcoins. So we want this chart similar to Bitcoin dominance. We want the USDT dominance to be bearish. Now, why is this chart bearish? A very basic TA principle. We have a descending triangle. Now, if we flip this, if we inverted the scale for a moment, you can see we have an ascending triangle, and this is actually bullish. We're in an uptrend. We formed an ascending triangle, and we're expecting to break up. Sometimes it helps to invert a chart to change your point of view so that you can appreciate what's going on and understand what's going on. Instead, what I've clearly shown here is we are in a downtrend, right? We've been in a downtrend since November of 2022, okay? So since essentially the beginning of the year, once we broke down here, at the very beginning of 2023, which is when the market started to recover, so not surprisingly, dominance within Tether started to drop. So we have this flagpole, and you could actually say this is a bear flag, but I wouldn't go that far. But we're in a downtrend, and we have a descending triangle. We have this flat horizontal base, and we have this descending line now that we've hit 3 times. Now, the interesting thing with chart formations is typically, an ascending triangle, a descending triangle, broadening wedges. Typically, you get 3 touches on the top and the bottom, okay, until you have confirmation of a trend break in either direction, okay? So you can see we've had touch point 1, 2, and now 3. We've had touch points 1, 2, and 3. So the next time we come down here, I'm expecting this to break. I do not expect, Tether dominance right now is sitting at 4.95%. The next time, if you're following the chart, okay, this is a prediction. The next time that you see Tether dominance get into this region, right in between 4 and 3.8, it's going to break down. And I have a technical target drawn here that takes us down somewhere between like 2.7 and 2.2%, somewhere in that range, okay? And there's also price confluence. I based it on a technical target as well as price confluence. So right in between 2.7 and 2.2 is where I expect the bleeding to continue. If we look in the past, we can see that drops in dominance typically lead to rises within the altcoin market. So this is chart number 2. Because USDT dominance is bearish and we're expecting a breakdown out of a descending triangle, we are anticipating money flooding into the altcoin market because that is historically what has happened. So we got the Bitcoin dominance, which is bearish. We have the USDT dominance, which is bearish. Think about it. Think about what those 2 charts in confluence tell you. It's very important when you're evaluating different sets of data to be able to... there's value in singularly being able to look at each chart and decipher what it's telling you. Now, to layer on an additional level of expertise within the market is the ability to be able to extrapolate conclusions where there is confluence between multiple charts. So now what we can do with Bitcoin dominance and what we can do with USDT dominance, knowing that both are bearish, what we're saying is we're anticipating money flooding out of Bitcoin, out of USDT, a stablecoin. Where the hell is it going to go if it's not in Bitcoin and USDT? It's going to go into the altcoins that you've been so salty about, okay? Total 2, guys. This is an extremely bullish chart. This is essentially the biggest macro perspective view you can have on the altcoin index space, okay? Altcoin index. This is the entire cryptocurrency market removing Bitcoin. It includes Ethereum. Ethereum sort of skews the view a little bit because the market cap is so high. The top 10 skew the view, so we'll take a look at total 3 in a moment. But you can see here we have this ascending line of support that has been respected. Guys, let's look at... since this time period here, all the way up into here, this top red line, and it's really 2 red lines that I have drawn between, I don't know what it is, let's see what it is. I don't have a fucking clue. I can't read because the numbers are all combined. It's between, looks like 1.5 and 1.52, or what is it? Or is this 1.7? So between 1.52 trillion and 1.7 trillion, that has held as an area of resistance for over 1,400 days. 1,400 days that has held as an area of resistance. Now, what is one of the most basic premises that I've shared with you about technical analysis? The more that we bump up against an area of price confluence, does it become weaker or stronger? It becomes weaker. So we've come up here multiple times now and have hit it. The other interesting thing about this pattern is this is essentially forming somewhat of an ascending triangle. This thing is like a pressure cooker. That's how I would describe it. This thing is coiling up for a move. The most ideal close for them, now this is on a monthly view, the most ideal view for this candlestick would be to actually close above 1.52 trillion. Anything at 1.52, it looks like we're at about 1.5. So just closing up a hair to form this into support. We don't need that to happen, but that would be even more bullish. So this is the third chart we've looked at that looks extremely bullish. Now let's take a look at, it's actually not just total 3, it's total 3ES. So what it's doing is, this is a newer chart that I stumbled upon that I'm looking at. So the difference between total 3, which is looking at, it's your altcoin index stripping out the top 10, versus your total 3ES. Total 3ES is total 3, but now let's take out stable coins, right? So it's truly the altcoin index outside of the top 10. That's the only difference. You can see a very similar scenario is going on here, and this looks even cleaner in terms of an ascending triangle. We've come up here 3 times now, guys. The other thing that I should share with you is you don't need to know the names of candlesticks. What you do need to understand is the story behind each candle. When you look at a candlestick, you should know the story that it's telling you, okay? So I don't know the name of this candlestick. Whatever the hell the name of the candlestick is irrelevant. But I can tell you that I can properly interpret for you what has gone on during the month of October. October opened up here. We went all the way down here. All the way the fuck down here. That, we got seller exhaustion. The buyers ran the price up. Buyers were like, that looks like a dick and balls. I'm going to be honest with you. That was not planned. For anyone watching right now, that was definitely not planned. Let me take my VPN off. I think that's slowing things down. Absolutely not planned. Okay, the VPN took the... Oh, no, wait, it didn't take it away. Well, for those of you, you're getting a little biology education as well. So, I don't know if we're going to... No, let's not continue drawing. The whole point... Let's remove this. Now this is getting distracting. I don't need a dick and balls on the... Okay, so... So the case in point is seller exhaustion. Buyers ran the price up almost to where where the price opened, right? So I view this as a signal, especially given that we've held ascending support and we're in an uptrend. I view this as a strong signal, along with the fact that we've run up against resistance so many times, that we are literally on the precipice of breaking out. Now, if this chart is literally on the precipice of breaking out, what does that mean? It means that all of the altcoins outside of the top 10, removing stable coins, as an index, as a weighted average, is about to go parabolic. This isn't, you don't break 1,500 days of resistance to, let me just be clear about this. There are probabilities for everything. I want to be clear about this. There's a probability this could roll over. There's a probability we could moon up. There's a probability we have a fake out and roll over. These are all, we live in a world of probabilities, guys. I'm not out here telling you with certainty. I'm telling you out here the most probabilistic direction for Bitcoin dominance is down. The most probabilistic direction for USDT dominance is down. The most probabilistic direction for total 2 is up. The most probabilistic direction for total 3 is up. Now, typically, when you have a long withstanding area of resistance, we're not talking about a 12-hour chart, a 4-hour chart, where you're looking over a few days and resistance gets broken. We're not looking at low time frame charts. We're looking at a monthly chart, and we're saying that this resistance has been in place for 1,500 days, okay? Once that breaks, typically when you have that much time, and this is like, literally this thing is coiling up, you don't come up here and then fizzle out. You generally break up. And I wouldn't be surprised, typically when you break an area of price confluence, quite oftentimes, just like we took a look at it in USDT dominance, when you have an area of price confluence, we like to come down, and same thing on Bitcoin dominance. You like to come down, back test it, and then move up, right? I don't even know, there's a whole range of possibilities. We could break up, back test this, and continue moving, or, like Ethereum did back in 2021 or 2020, we could break up, people are waiting for the pullback, and it just never breaks, never pulls back, and then we eventually have a correction. So either way, this is setting up for a massive move, in my opinion. So that is the fourth chart. Chart number 5. This is others charted against BTC. Now, if I had a child, which I don't, but if I did, and this child was, 5, 6, 7 years old, if I put this chart in front of him, I bet you, him or her, I bet you they would be able to have pattern recognition to tell me what is most likely, right? The whole point is here, this is others charted against BTC. Others, now am I confusing others with total 3? Total 2 is the total index excluding Ethereum. Total 3 is outside the top 10. Total others. Why the fuck am I forgetting what total others is? Man, I'm having a brain fart live on the crypto YouTubes. Let's ask Google, because quite honestly, I'm forgetting. Total others index in crypto is what? All right, well, I am having it is calculated by taking a broader set of cryptocurrencies. Yeah, why am I having a brain fart? Okay, here we go. Total 2. Wow, this is not helpful. Well, whatever the case is, I'm having a brain. If anybody wants to help me in the comments, I don't know why at this moment I'm forgetting what total others are. Hey, Todd, for the super chat. Never expected, but always appreciated. Thank you, kind sir. Jeez, very, very, man, you are very generous. Juan, welcome in. Earthwalker, welcome in. For the love of God, would someone correct me on the difference between total others and total 3? I am having a complete meltdown in my head that I can't remember this. In any event, maybe others is outside the top 10. What the fuck would total 3 be then? Oh, I apologize. Never mind. Yes. Okay, let's back up, because CBG, everything about what I said, spot on, all right? Total 2 is taking out Bitcoin. So that is going to be everything including Ethereum, like I said. So I was correct there. Total 3 just takes out Ethereum, okay? So this is everything excluding Bitcoin and Ethereum and stable coins, okay? That is total 3 ES. Total others is everything outside of the top 10. Apologize for the confusion. Yes, so just one more time. Total 2, I did explain that correctly. It's excluding Bitcoin, so it includes Ethereum. Total 3, just now we're taking out Bitcoin and Ethereum, okay? And we're taking out stable coins, and it's every other altcoin. Total others, this is going to be the most volatile one because it's everything outside of the top 10, okay? So chart number 5. This is others charted against Bitcoin, okay? When we're going up, very simplistically, because others is in the numerator, it means others is outpacing Bitcoin. When we're going down, Bitcoin is outpacing others. This is why the market has been so salty. If you've been 100% in Bitcoin, I mean, you're feeling pretty fucking fantastic if you've been in since 2023. But for people who have been in altcoins, I mean, look at this. This is horrendous. We've been bleeding since January of 22. We've been bleeding against Bitcoin for, what is it? It's almost 3 years. Almost 3 years, guys. Which shows the importance in bear markets of why you want to hold Bitcoin over any altcoin. You can name me any altcoin and you should be holding Bitcoin. You shouldn't be holding that altcoin. But there are two things to point out on this chart, three things to point out on this chart that leave me feeling very bullish that others is going to begin to turn the tide and outperform Bitcoin. First off, we've hit a major area of price confluence, as you can see here, and we held it as support. Point number two is we wicked all the way down here, seller exhaustion, buyers bought it up, and we're closing close to where we opened. So that's point number two. Point number three is, what's this formation here? This is a falling wedge, okay? We have a falling wedge here, right? It's getting a little bit more narrow in here. And once this trend line here breaks, and I would say we take out the past lower high, which is at about 22. So we got a double from here, which isn't, the altcoin space does not take long. Double in performance relative to Bitcoin, and we should be ascending. Now, I'm not telling you that we're going to hit this ascending line here. You see how we tapped it here? And I'm not telling you that. But I do think it's very reasonable. I do think it's very reasonable to at least touch our prior all-time high at 50 and maybe go a little bit higher. So we'll have to see. Here is a red line of resistance. I think once we break out of here, we're at least going to make a run towards this red line of resistance at our prior all-time high. But if we really do get that big gap down in Bitcoin dominance, like if we really start to see a gap down and we start to enter zone 3, as I suspect, there's quite a possibility that we could create a new all-time high here. So that is chart number 5. Chart number 6. Now, this is the only altcoin we're going to look at, which is Ethereum, and it's the Ethereum BTC relativity chart. Why are we looking at Ethereum? Because Ethereum historically has been the leader in the altcoin space and it's been the mothership, all right? Throwback to WCW Saturday night with Dusty Rhodes, for those who know, the mothership, all right? Ethereum is the mothership, and how that motherfucker goes is how the rest of the market goes, okay? So meaning when Ethereum starts to pick up momentum, it gives confidence to the rest of the market. And eventually, as Ethereum starts to get up towards 6,000, 7,000, it needs to cool off, right? People now are saying, okay, well, Ethereum went from 4,000 to 7,000, say, or 7,200. This thing needs to cool off and at least consolidate if it's going to go higher. And the returns in that asset aren't going to be as exciting as something like a meme coin or a different layer 1 with a smaller market cap. I'm going to rotate capital. Risk starts to increase. The risk appetite in the market starts to increase. So we need Ethereum to do really well. Now, a couple things going on in this chart. First off, we have a descending area of resistance clearly drawn here. You can't miss it. Look at the black line. Okay? Black line here that we've hit. The other thing to point out is we have, and this is on a monthly view, we have a bull pennant, right? We have a bull pennant. We're in an uptrend, and we have a pennant there. So we're in a bull pennant. The other thing I'd like to point out, doesn't matter what altcoin you look at, said altcoin is always underperforming Bitcoin in the long run. Still waiting for one to come along that might change that. But in any case, resistance, descending resistance, right? So this gray line, in my opinion, is going to be extremely difficult to break. And there's also confluence, depending when we start to break up here, there's also confluence with this descending line right in between the golden pocket and 0.786. This is a fib retracement level. I would suspect that at the very least we're going to come up to the 0.618. We could get as high as the 0.786. But if we start to come up into this territory up in here, it's going to be very hard to break this descending resistance. I'm not saying that we can't go up here. I'm not saying that we can't test all-time highs. I'm not saying that. But there's enough price confluence there that I think it's going to be very challenging to get above there. So it'll be very interesting. But despite that, I love the uptrend and I love the consolidation taking here right at resistance. When everything else that we looked at is bullish for altcoins. I love this setup. This is chart number 6. Chart number 7, which will be the last chart that we're going to take a look at. And I gave credit on X Twitter to TechDev52 for turning me on to this chart. This is a monthly view on the ratio of copper to gold, and essentially what it's an indicator of is market contraction and market expansion. Okay? If you think about the things that copper is used for in the market, okay, gold is thought of as a really stable, Bitcoin's a digital gold, right? A stable store of value, okay? Copper, if the price of copper is increasing, what does that mean? That means the demand for copper is increasing. What is copper used for? It's used in construction. It's used for all sorts of different things, right? But the most important thing for you to take away from this chart, you don't need to know any of that, right? You just really need to know what the chart's telling you. When we've had these black descending lines of resistance and we've confirmed a breakout above it, we've had a black line of descendants and we've confirmed a breakout above it. We have a black line of descending resistance and we break out above it. That is when the market really begins to move, and that is when we see what I define as an alt season, okay? At the same time that that's occurring, you should see Bitcoin dominance and USDT dominance plummeting in value. So I've theoretically shown what we might do here. I am not telling you that we're going to hit this ascending line, similar to my comments back here. I'm not telling you that. But I am telling you that and all we can do is find charts that tell a story. This chart might fail at some point. It's quite possibly it could fail. But history tells us that if we break that descending line of black resistance, we will be seeing massive runs within the altcoin sector. Now, the other thing to point out in this chart, we're seeing a really, really strong reversal candlestick here from a downtrend. And I want to show you what I mean. Again, I don't care what the name of the candlestick is. We opened here, okay? We went all the way down here, seller exhaustion, and we went all the way back up and pushed materially above where we opened and created this big green body here. It's almost like a hammer candlestick, although I don't think it qualifies as a hammer candle given how big this is. But again, it's important that you can tell a story from a candlestick. I could give two shits less what the name of the candle is. So we're in a downtrend, and we've just had, and you've seen the other thing to point out is volume has picked up. Volume precedes price. So it's very good to see that volume has picked up. Been in a massive downtrend. Volume has picked up here. Bullish reversal candlestick. It'll be interesting once we get up to the descending, whenever we get up there, what the price action is like. Will we see something similar to this, where we bounce around here for a bit and go up, or do we just break out above it, right? Now, another thing to point out in this chart, the other thing you can kind of point out here is the descending lines of resistance have gotten longer and longer. This one, it's kind of deceiving just because we back tested it. But the descending line itself, having broken, should fix that. I did not have that. Did I have that drawn correctly? Hold on. Candlesticks are kind of hard to see. Okay, that's okay. Okay, so we didn't break it until there. Okay. I didn't have that drawn right because I missed this body there. Okay, so we had, every time we got above the black line with confirmation, that's when we had the breakout. You can see these two lines, they're roughly equal. Yeah, they're roughly equal. And this time, going with the rest of the cycle, it has just taken a longer time, guys. It doesn't mean just because things are taking longer that anything's different. Again, I would really encourage a lot of you to be extremely careful what information you're ingesting from X, Twitter, and from YouTube. There is a lot of garbage out there. Just a lot of garbage, right? I'm never going to come out here and never profess to you that I know exactly what's going to happen. I'm making all these predictions and blah, blah, blah. No, I come out here, I objectively evaluate the data, and I tell you what's going on and my view based on that. Now, I think it's important when we're at this stage here and we're expecting some significant runs in the market. I think it's important that we recognize whether we're having a down day or an up day, we're all going to naturally, as human beings, feel an emotion, right? But the way that you keep yourself grounded and keep your emotions in check is to know what data to look at. And unless, again, I cannot emphasize this enough, there's a lot of people in this space that are not data-driven people. They are hype artists. They're people that just want your clicks. Clearly, this YouTube channel isn't making me any money, so I'm not garnering for your clicks. I just come out here and do it because it's fun for me. Okay, and the same thing on X and Twitter, all right? There are people that are just, they are salesmen. Think of them as salesmen, right? Sheep in wolf's clothing. People that honestly don't even know what they're talking about, but just want to farm engagement. And then there are people in the space that objectively evaluate the data and just give you their opinions based on what they're seeing, right? I could have someone in the room with me showing me charts that are bearish that could be very compelling, right? And I would respect that if it was an objective view and it was compelling data that had historical precedence. I believe I've put together here 7 charts that are telling me how do I want to state this? These 7 charts are telling me with a high degree of conviction that more than likely we are going to see a big run in altcoins. We just have to be fucking patient, okay? And unless something changes in this data and things begin to plummet and fall apart here and plummet and fall apart here, and Bitcoin dominance, even though this looks monumentally bearish, it just begins to break up here and go higher. Unless if that stuff starts to happen, which is the least probable direction for those things, then we should anticipate that, yes, we're going to see a large run in altcoins. Guys, that's all I got for the live stream today. Like I said, I wanted to keep this brief. We're at 37 minutes. So thank you, everyone, for showing up. And if you appreciate the content, please don't forget to hit the thumbs up button and click the bell icon for all notifications to know when I go live. I've been saying this for a while, and it's just taken a long time. Once the market begins to truly pick up, altcoins begin to really run. We're seeing Ethereum create new all-time highs. That would be an indicator. And we're seeing Bitcoin dominance slowly start to bleed into zone 2. I'm going to be out here more frequently. I'm just waiting for the market to pick up. All right, until next time, let's all spread awareness and let's carry the education forward. Take care, everybody.